Winnie Overbeek, let's talk then about what is happening with indigenous people who are living in the forest of COVID. They're also under attack on a number of fronts, but there is growing concern that perhaps even an entire generation of indigenous people, a lot of the elders, may be impacted and may die. Just give us what you know about what's going on with indigenous people in the Amazon.
Well, yeah. Since colonization started 500 years ago, what has caused most death among indigenous people is definitely diseases and viruses and so on. This reference to genocide, which is happening now, this alert of Sebastian Salgado is actually happening. I would say because we have some figures from the government which are really not the right figures. The indigenous movement has also tried to organize figures, and they also, they cannot calculate everything because the areas are very remote and it's very difficult, the communication. But they have calculated until 1-2 weeks ago at least 400 people died, especially, as you say, the elderly, which is very serious because what is happening is that the memory of the people die, and more than 11,000 indigenous persons infected, and probably these numbers are much higher. And it's true that several of these people, they have still a very restricted time of contact with the white people, with civilization, to call it like that. So they don't have the same antibodies that we have. So any flu is most often much more mortal, much more dangerous for them. And this requires a very strong response of the government, of the authorities, a different treatment. And what we have seen since the first day of Bolsonaro is that he has done everything to stop the support to indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples in Brazil, they have a specific attention in terms of healthcare. It's different from the people in general, because it's understood that these 350 people with many different cultures, they need a specific treatment. And this has been destroyed, you can say, since the first day of Bolsonaro. So we already had that situation of a very weak healthcare when COVID-19 arrived. And COVID-19, it demands a very specific sort of communication with the people, because they have their own rituals, they have their own way of, burying their people, often in rituals that take days or weeks, and it needs a very sensitive, it needs a very careful conversation, dialogue, communication with the people to explain the dangers. It's not just distributing folders. That's what the government says that they have been doing, It's very different, and the people are not there to do it because he has destroyed the system as much as he can. So what is happening now is like trying to do something, but there should be done much more. The indigenous movement has gone to court to demand that the government takes its responsibility. And the other day, the Supreme Court, they decided that the government should take its responsibility. But still, what will happen in practice, we don't know. There was a law in the parliament asking also for specific attention for the indigenous communities and also for the black Quilombola communities. These are rural black communities that also have rights to their land, that have a different sort of life than a specific culture compared with other communities in town. And what Bolsonaro did, he gave his veto on the most important elements of this law that was approved by the parliament. So he is trying to do everything do nothing and to make life more difficult. And the other problems, especially in COVID-19 times, that is affecting the indigenous peoples is that since the first day of Bolsonaro, they were already having more invasions in their territories, especially loggers and what we call grileiros. This is the Portuguese term for sort of people that try to appropriate of the land in an illegal way and produce illegal land titles. And the activity of these kind of people has only increased, and they are taking advantage of COVID-19 to do more invasions because at the same time, during COVID-19, less people of the control agencies of the government are in the field because of the social distancing and everything. And at the same time, the communities, they don't have, the capacity to react. They don't have the capacity to mobilize like they used to do. In April, for example, every year we have a huge mobilization of indigenous peoples in the capital, and they protest at the door of the president, at the door of the parliament, for their rights. And this year they could not do that, and they cannot defend their territories. And at the same time, Bolsonaro, from the first day of his government, and especially during these difficult times of COVID-19, taking advantage to try to approve new rules, new laws that are very bad for indigenous people, that are very bad for the protection of the Amazon, making the life of these illegal land stealers and these loggers more easy. So that is a little bit the situation I can describe from what I can perceive of what is happening.